I'm going to be talking about how I passed my driving test. So I just want to start off by saying I didn't have a clue about driving. I thought I knew, but I didn't. So I thought it was literally just driving, but it's much more than just going down the road, driving, and you know how to drive. I started my driving lessons at the start of the year, so January 2017, and I had my first instructor who I went with. I can't remember his name, but I went with him, paid for driving lessons. He was £22 an hour, and I did an hour and a half each week with him. He kept like going off sick, which was fine, like he needed to be off, but it was coming up to summer, and so I'd obviously been with him like 7 months or so, and I hadn't really learnt much. I thought I had, but when I come home and was like talking to like my parents about it, they were like, do you know this? And I was like, no. And they were like, have you done this? I was like, no. So anyway, I decided to ring up another instructor and go with him. I took my theory in June and I didn't pass. I'd done so much revising, but I didn't pass. And the questions weren't hard, it was just intense because you're sat in a room with probably about 10 computers in, and there's people next to you but you can't see them because there's like boards either side of you, and I get quite anxious anyway, so I just sat there, done it all, and I come out, got my results, and I'd failed by 1 mark. So you need 42 out of 50 on the, no, you need 43 out of 50, sorry, on the questions you answer, and you need 44 out of 75 to pass on the hazard perception. So I got 42 out of 50, so I didn't pass that, and I got 60 out of 75, so I passed that, but you need to pass both before you actually get your theory certificate. Anyway, so I basically had a month out of driving while I was waiting for my new instructor because he could only start at the end of July. So I took my theory again on the 26th of July, and I didn't think I'd passed at all, but I did. I passed on the 26th of July, and on the 27th of July I started with my new instructor. So when I started driving, I used to be so scared of roundabouts and going around them. I didn't know why, it's just like, I'm guessing everyone has their little things they're scared of when driving. Mine was roundabouts. Anyway, so I started my new instructor, he took me around roundabouts and I was fine, I don't worry about them anymore. So when I started my new instructor, he asked me how much I knew, and he sort of like just took me out driving and was like, okay, show me what you can do. Obviously because I had been driving and my driving was okay, it's just like the manoeuvres, hill starts and everything like that, I didn't know about at all. My old instructor was saying like, it's okay, we'll just do them near the start of your test, which wasn't the case at all. You needed to learn them as soon as you were like with that instructor. So anyway, my instructor took me up hills, roundabouts, asked me to do some manoeuvres, and I showed him what I could do basically. So on my next lesson with him, he taught me all the manoeuvres, and I done them all. There's parallel park, reverse around the corner, turn in the road, and a bay park. Now I hate reverse around a corner. I could not do that for the life of me. I liked parallel park, I liked turn the road, and I liked bay park. I think my favourite probably was turn in the road, to be honest with you. That was with my new instructor, my confidence really built up more and I felt like I could actually drive. But when I was telling my new instructor about some of the things my old instructor was telling me, it didn't quite add up. For example, my old instructor told me when you're coming off your clutch, you're not allowed to put your foot on the accelerator at all until you're fully off the clutch. And my instructor was like, no, that's not the case, like that's not how it works at all. So obviously, because I was with this first instructor for 7 months, it took me a long time to get out of the habit of doing that. So anyway, I made the right decision changing, and if you feel like you want to change, then you should change, I think. This new instructor was a bit more expensive. He was £57 for 2 hours, and he liked to do 2-hour lessons, otherwise it worked out more if you'd done less than 2 hours, because the actual rate was £28.50, but if you did an hour and a half it was £45 anyway, I don't know how it worked out, but I did 2 hours every week. In August I brought my first car, and it's a Ford Fiesta, and I love it. It's such a nice car to drive, I think. I've got one of the black boxes you have in your car, so if anyone takes your car they can see where your car is, but then you also have to stick to like the speed limits, because if you don't then it will show, and if you go over the speed limit then you can get a fine. So my instructor taught me everything I knew, and he was like, I think you should take your test in September, because like you've been practicing in your own car, like. So I found that having my own car helped me a lot, especially with confidence, because when you get in your car there's no other pedals, but in an instructor's car they have pedals, so obviously if you make a mistake or you're about to crash or something, they could just put it down on the pedals and you don't have to worry really. But in your car it's different, you're the only one in control, and I think that's why it helped me. So I would recommend, if you can have a car to drive, like on your own, not your instructor's car, a different car, then it does help a lot. Obviously if you can't then it's fine, but I think that helped me personally, and I've seen other people say the same as well. Anyway, yeah, my instructor was telling me to take my test in September. He was like, you're ready, you know all the manoeuvres, I know you can drive. But I didn't feel like I could. Well, I know I could drive, but I didn't feel like I needed to know everything I needed to know, and I didn't have that confidence to go out myself and drive. If that makes sense. Like, I didn't feel like I was ready to be on the road on my own. I feel like I needed more lessons. Anyway, I told him I wasn't going to do my test in September, and it got to October, and I knew that the driving scheme of things was changing on the 4th of December. You should all know by now that the driving scheme has changed, and instead of like being taught all the manoeuvres, parallel park, bay park, reverse around the corner and turn the road, you only get taught like 1, and like 3 of them are being taken out, so I'm not sure which one is staying. You also have to learn how to follow a sat nav, and people probably will be like, yeah, that's easy, but it's not, it's really hard. So I'm quite thankful I didn't have to do that on my lessons. And the independent driving increases to 20 minutes. So when you take your test, the whole thing is 40 minutes, but you have to answer 2 questions. There's a list of 15, they're called show me tell me questions. You can find them on Google, you can find them on YouTube, on your instructor's page. Anyway, you can find them anywhere, literally. And the examiner will ask you 2 of them, either when you're sat in the car but haven't moved off, or when you're outside the car, because you might have to go under the bonnet. It sounds complicated to go under the bonnet, but it's not, it's quite easy. Your instructor will show you what to do before you go to the examiner. Your instructor will then get in the car, and if you've told him the correct answers, then that's fine, he won't tell you you've got them correct though. But if you don't get them correct, you'll get a minor, and obviously you don't want a minor just for answering questions which you can easily revise. You then drive out the test centre, but as soon as you started driving, that's when your test starts, not when you get out the test centre gates. As soon as you get in the car and turn it on and go. You also have to do an eyesight test, so you'll stand a certain distance away from a car and read that number plate. Again, if you can't read it, then you don't go on your test. And I always thought, like, when people were telling me this, it all sounded really scary, but actually it's not. It's just quite simple, you just go with it. So anyway, got in my car, well, my examiner's car, instructor's car, and he was examining me, and I was just driving. He tells you which way to go. If he asks you to pull up, he tells you to pull up on a safe place. It's all quite simple, basically what you've done. And before you have your exam, your instructor should do a mock test with you. Now, I didn't pass my mock test. Luckily there's nothing involved, I didn't have to pay for it, it was just another lesson that your instructor done with you. But I didn't pass that, and I thought that was like the best driving I've ever done. Anyway, I took my test on the 13th of November at 12:33, and I know it's going to sound silly, but my instructor always says go for the lunchtime one, because it's not in a peak time, it's off peak. Whereas if you're going for like a 9 o'clock or a 4 o'clock, you're in rush hour because people are getting to work or getting back from work. Anyway, you have a 1 hour lesson before your test, and then you go in there and that's it, they decide. So I got in the car, he took me up these roads that, oh my god, they were the worst roads like you've known. They were horrible. It was like uphill, round bits I didn't even know, one-way systems. At one point I literally thought I'd gone through the wrong traffic lights, because there was 4, so it was red, amber, green, and then there's one to turn right, but I went on the green but it didn't have the right signal on, so I thought that was it, but it wasn't. Anyway, we got to another road, he asked me to pull up, told me to start the independent driving. So all that happens is he says, for example, at the next set of traffic lights turn right, carry on till the end of the road and then turn left, and you do that for 10 minutes, unless obviously it's the new part of the test and you're going for 20 minutes. I did that, but when we pulled up I checked like in my mirror, and I looked down, my instructor told me not to, but I looked down to see if there was any sheets with minors on, because they just tick them off, and I didn't have any on there, and I thought, like that can't be right, maybe he's got another sheet underneath. Anyway, we carried on driving, I forgot about it, got to another set of traffic lights, I looked in my mirror but looked down as well, and there was still nothing on the sheets, and I thought, there's no way I've got no minors, it must be a sheet covering the actual sheet where they tick off, because you're allowed to get 15 minors but no majors. Anyway, drove around, my test lasted half an hour because 10 minutes of it is taken up by going under the bonnet and the questions and everything, so really only driving for half an hour. Anyway, got back to the test centre, he goes, I'm pleased to tell you you've passed your test, oh, and you have no minors. I was like, are you joking? He was like, no, I'm not. And anyway, I was so happy. I thought that was the worst drive of my life, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to pass this. He made me do a reverse around the corner, and as I just said, that is my worst manoeuvre. It was horrendous, but clearly not because he passed me, like, it was safe clearly. So, tips. I'm going to give you some tips for when you're on lessons and when you're taking a test. I know it's so cliche and everyone says it, but don't panic. I'm someone who panics over the slightest things, and everyone's saying to me, don't panic, it is what it is. Anyway, I still panic because there's nothing you can do about it really, but if you're doing a manoeuvre, for example turning the road, and you see cars coming either side of you, that's when I'd panic. So I'm trying to say, if they're there, forget about them. And obviously, again, everyone says that, but honestly, forget about them, because if you're focusing on them cars and trying to do it quickly and rushed, you're more than likely to fail or even stall the car because you're focusing on something else, and then you're going to be so annoyed at yourself. And check your mirrors all the time, because that's what they look for. And if I didn't do this, but I've seen someone else give another tip, that if you put your hair in a ponytail, if you have long hair, then when you're looking in the mirrors, your instructor can see you looking in the mirrors. I don't know, but because if they don't see you, even if you're doing it, then they'll fail you on mirror checks. It is very weird, and I would probably get judged for this, but my friend took her test 4 times and she wasn't passing. Then another one of our friends who took her driving test twice, she was like, oh, it's meant to be a lucky charm if you take an egg in the car with you. And we were like, what? And they were like, yeah, it's like a lucky charm if you take the egg in the car with you. We were like, no, it can't be. Anyway, my friend had her test a couple of days before mine. She took an egg in the car with her and passed. And I thought, there's no way, but like, you know, all them superstitions like everyone has. I thought, I'm gonna try it, because if I don't take the egg and don't pass, I'm gonna think, if I take it, would I pass? I know it sounds stupid, but I literally would be like that. Anyway, I prepared this egg, just a normal egg, take it out of the fridge, put it in some kitchen paper, for example, put it in a pot and tape the pot up. That's what I did, and then I left it in my bag. So I took an egg with me and I passed first time with no minors. It sounds stupid, but honestly, superstitions like that just get me. Now, this is the end of the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Just I thought I'd give you a few little tips and tell you about my experience with driving. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to comment below and I will try and answer them for you. Hello everyone! I'm back.